This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting me tonight. We give a big yashar koach to the Leibovitz family for hosting tonight's event, and the learning should be Zchus for Shalema for Leah Mirav Bas Sarah Pesel B'Sov Shachal Yisrael, and may this home always be Malei Torah Yerushalayim Tamid Chachamim Ad B'Yaskal Tzedek. B'Shus the Mardas for Shlita of Dannenbaum. It's really a great cover to be staying in his house, and I don't have to tell you what a great privilege that you have to have such a caliber Talmid Chacham at your home, Rosh Hashiva, Lamdin, Poisek. But I could tell you from staying in his home that this is the type of home that produces wonderful children. And from the moment I came into the house, the kids almost instinctively, each one of them their own right, what can I give you to eat, what can I give you to drink, one more zis than the other. And it's mamish, it's kedai to come all the way across the world to see such a house where there's so much overflow of simcha and Torah that you feel it in the air. So it's a great privilege to be in the Rav's home and to be with you. This is my last year in Melbourne for this time around, and Be'ezus Hashem hope to see everybody again b'simcha. So tonight's shiur is, we call it the 10 Commandments of Raising Successful Children. The Rav already mentioned 8 of them, so I only have 2 left. No, but we're going to mention the points that the Rav made, of course, are definitely on the list, and we will point that out as we go on. The first rule is definitely very controversial. So if you want to know how it applies, when it applies, how to qualify it, you could ask the Rav. I'm just here to tell you the facts. And how it applies, you need to use your own seichel. So we have the 2 diametrically opposite children, Yaakov and Esav. And they come to their father Yitzchak. And we all know, despite the fact that Esav was a great rasha, but if there's one mitzvah that he excelled in more than anybody else, it was Kibbud Av V'Em. Even Reb Shimon Gamliel said that he's nothing compared to the Kibbud Av V'Em of Esav. And nevertheless, Chazal point out 2 distinctions between the way Yaakov spoke to his father and the way Esav spoke to his father. And these are distinctions that we're all familiar with. But I'm here tonight to tell you about a 3rd distinction. And this is a very shocking distinction. And in a way, at first glance, l'chayra, it would seem that in this sense, Esav had a lot more respect for his father than Yaakov. The first one is obvious. How'd you get here so quickly? So Yaakov invokes the name of Hashem. So Yaakov puts on the good old Esav costume, and he's all hairy, and he feels like, I don't know what, a kelev, a bear. He feels like Esav. But Yitzchak says, how'd you get here so quick? So he invokes the name of Hashem. So Yitzchak says, come here, let me feel you. You don't sound like Esav. Esav doesn't mention the name of Hashem. And then he says, Vayomer, Hakoil Kol Yaakov, Hayadayim Midei Esav. You sound like Yaakov. And Rashi says, why do you sound like Yaakov? Because he uses the word na, please. So these are the 2 distinctions between Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov says the name of Hashem, Yaakov says please. Esav doesn't mention God, Esav doesn't say please. In both of these distinction, Yaakov has more respect. Yaakov's manner of speech is much more refined. But Rav Nosson Adler, the Rabbi of the Chassam Sofer, points out an astounding difference between the way Yaakov speaks to his father and the way Esav spoke to his father. And in this way, it would seem that Yaakov had much more respect for his father than Esav. And that is, Yaakov says to his father, Kum na, 2nd person, get up. Please, but get up. You get up. You. What does Esav say? If you have on your sheets, or I'll read it to you. Vayomer la'aviv, Yakum avi, will the tata get up? Will father get up? Not you get up. 3rd person. So it seemed like Esav has a lot more honor and courtesy to his father than Yaakov. Yaakov says, Kumna, 2nd person. And Esav says, Yakum avi, will the tata get up? The way you speak to your Rebbe, the way you speak to your Rav. Will the Rav Will the tata? Says Rav Nosson Adler, no. Yidden don't speak to their parents that way. Goyim speak to their parents third person. Jews speak to their parents second person. Why? Chassam Sofer explains his Rabbi. Chassam Sofer says by Yidden, there's such a bond, there's such a closeness in Gashmias, in Ruchnias. There's this concept that when a child does a mitzvah, it elevates the father. Bra mezaka ava. There's a concept that bra kara da avua. There's such a tightness, there's such a closeness, there's such a friendship between father and son. We do not refer to our parents in third person, says Chassam Sofer. Esav is a guy. How many nefashos? There are only 7 nefashos by Esav, but they're nefashos. There's no connection. There's a generation gap. There's a generation gap. Yakum avi. Will the tata get up? But by Yaakov Avinu, kumna. So we have this concept that Chassam Sofer is bringing out, the opposite of what you would have thought, that by a Yid there's a certain achva, friendship between a child and his father and mother. Somebody told me, but you're not supposed to be your child's friend. I was always taught that you're not supposed to be your child's friend. So the only thing I have to say to that is, you were taught wrong. Now how this applies, when it applies, let's see. Let's go to another pasuk in Chumash, Parsha Re'eh. It's talking about the biggest aveira in the Torah. What's the biggest aveira in the Torah? The mesis. Where you try to persuade and seduce somebody to sin. So the Torah gives different examples. The Torah says, Ki yasischa achicha, if your brother tries to persuade you. Ben imecha, the son of your mother, ay bincha, or your son, ay bitcha, or your daughter, ay eshes cheikecha, or your wife, ay reacha asher kinafshecha. Or your friend that's like your soul, like your best mate. That's how you say it? Yeah? Your best friend. Your soul friend. Who's your soul friend? You know, in America at a wedding you have your best man. Who's your soul friend? Says Rashi, Asher kenavshecha ze avicha. You know who your best friend is? You know who your best friend is supposed to be? Your father. So it seemed like if you bring home parnasa and you show your kids how to daven, and you make sure they learn when they come home from yeshiva. But if you ask your kid, are you friendly with your father? And the kid says, no. You blew it. You're not doing the job. The Torah is saying, who is your friend that's like your soul? Ze avicha. I don't know, it's just a pasuk, it's a Rashi. You can't darshan and a darshan what a father is from one Rashi. Well, I'll tell you another Rashi. What?
Maybe that's why he's a Masis.
He's a Masis. Too friendly. Maybe that's why he's a Masis. There's a pasuk in Parshas Vayigash. The brothers, they hear the frightening words. Ani Yosef, Oid Avichai. I'm Yosef. Is Tata still around? So the brothers are mamish neshtoimim. They're crestful. They can't even get a word out of their mouth. So Yosef says, "Don't worry, don't sweat it. You didn't do anything. Ve'ata lo yatem shalachtem osihena. You didn't send me here. Ki hu elokim. You know what I am? Vayisimeni le'av le'paroi. Paroi made me his av." Oh, now we have the word av. Now if we could define what the word av means, now we know what a father is. Says Rashi. Rashi was an Orthodox rabbi. Says Rashi, la'av, l'chaver. So you say Rashi's being madchik the word av. Rashi's not saying what av means. Rashi has no alternative than to say, la'av, kiloymar l'chaver. Says Reb Shimon Schwab, from Rashi we learn what the definition of a father is in the eyes of the Torah. That a father is an chaver. Rashi continues, ulafatroin, a supporter, an advocate. Says Reb Shimon Schwab, Koloimar, we learn from Rashi, Shahapirus shel av al pi haTorah hu chaver upatron liois levnoi hachaver hachi toiv, to be your kid's best friend. Meaning, am I a good father? So we just ask you one simple question. Are you your kid's best friend? Am I a good mother? Am I my kid's best friend? Says Reb Schwab, you know where I learned this from? Rashi in Parshas Re'eh, where Rashi defines Re'acha asher kenavshecha as ze avicha. Sounds very new vogue, right? It sounds very revolutionary. We don't do that. My job is, the kid has to be in bed on time. The kid has to do this, not do that. If he goes out of line, I'm going to let him know. And that's not what a father is. You might have to do that, but that's not what a father is. There might be 5 duties that a father has or a mother has. You have to teach the kid Torah. You have to teach him Menumnus. You have to teach him how to swim, whatever the Gemara says in Kedushin. But those are descriptions, but they're not definition. What's definition? La'av l'chaver. I don't know, it's only 3 Rashis. I need more evidence. I can tell you 4th Rashi. Vayomer Yaakov la'echav, Lavan comes running after Yaakov Avinu, and on the 7th day, Lavan catches up with Yaakov Avinu. So Yaakov says, okay, let's have a Suda, Shver. Vayomer Yaakov la'echav, look to Avanim. Yaakov tells his brothers to gather stones. So Rashi is bothered by Akasha. Yaakov has no brothers. He has one brother, Esav, and he ain't talking to Esav. Esav wants to kill him. So who are these brothers of Yaakov Avinu? Says Rashi, you know who Yaakov's brothers are? Haim Banav, his children. Says the Chida, already 200 years ago. From Rashi we learn that the way to treat a child is you don't treat a child like your son and daughter, you treat them like your brother. Now the Chida says you don't have to do this. Only if you want to have peace in your home. But if you want to have peace in your home, says the Chida, Lamadnu sheyakov avinu al vashalom hayamachshiv es banav ke'echav v'chein roi la'av sheyachshiv banav gedolim. Now, I think this is an important word. Doesn't mean, your 2-year-old is your best friend, or your 3-year-old, or maybe not your 5-year-old. But probably your 14-year-old, banav gedolim. Maybe he means dafka adult. Says the Chida, uvazayu sheketim v'shananim. Says the Chida, this is not my idea, this is already known 1,000 years ago, the Sefer Chasidim. Sefer Chasidim is not a kula dika sefer. It's a strict sefer. Sefer Chasidim writes, Hine matoiv umanoim sheves achim gam yachad. The gematria of achim gam is banim, to teach that how do you treat your children like banim. No. In the yeshiva world we don't do this. We have a different mahalach. We have a different, it's not our Masorah. Yeah, you hold the Reb Shach? Yeah, you hold the Reb Shach? So parents came to Reb Shach. And they were having a hard time with their kid. The kid was suffering from overbearing parents. And the father said, no, the zu haderach, you have to scare the living daylights out of the kid, you have to be tough. Tough love. So the Rosh Hashiva said, I don't know, maybe you should ask a Gadol B'Yisrael. Let's take it to Reb Shach. So they went to Reb Shach. Reb Shach said like this: a father and mother have a dual role. On the one hand, the father has to be the teacher and instructor and the Rebbe. On the other hand, he has to be the father. Now, as a Rebbe, the Gemara says, Roik Mora b'talmidim. Any student who doesn't sit before the Rebbe sweating, it's not good, the Gemara says. On the other hand, as a father, you have to be karachim av abanim. So there's 2 diametrically opposite obligations that a parent has. Teacher and parent. Says Reb Shach, throw it out. The job that a parent had as a Rebbe is long gone. There's a man by the name of Rabbi Shua ben Gamla. He set up yeshivas in Klal Yisrael. He abdicated the father and mother from being the Rebbe of the kid. Nowadays, says Reb Shach, a parent has one job and one job only: to shower love on the kid, and that's the only responsibility of the parent. I don't have it on the sheet. I'm going to tell you a Rabbi Gamliel Rabinovich. This is probably the most Paladic thing I ever heard. Says Rabbi Gamliel, Achar hadvarim ha'ela v'alakim nisas Avraham v'yomer Hashem al Avraham Avraham v'yomer. What did Avraham say? Hineni. Avraham said Hineni. Behold, here I am. What does Rashi say? Hineni lashoin anava v'ziman. Humility. I'm prepared to do your bidding. That's how you talk to the Ribbon Shalom. When God Almighty talks to you, you say, I'm here to do whatever you want. Weiter in the Akedah, Vayomer Avraham el Yitzchak benoi. Vayomer Yitzchak el Avraham aviv. Yitzchak turns to Avraham. Avi, Tata, Yitzchak says. Vayomer Hineni. Behold, here I am. The same word that Avraham used when the Rebbeinu Shalom spoke to him, Avraham speaks to his son. Says Ram Gamliel, we learn from here with the same humility and anivus and hachna that you talk to the Borei Olam, you need to talk to your children. You need to be mechabed your children. Says Ram Gamliel, there is no doubt. You know why Avraham was able to produce a Yitzchak? Because he spoke to Yitzchak the same way he spoke to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Says Ram Gamliel, I'm afraid to say this, but he writes it in the Sefer. I'm just telling you what it says. I'm not saying I hold of it, I agree to it, ask your Rav. I'm telling you what he writes. That Ram Gamliel said his mother said that if the Torah was written today, I don't know how you say that, it sounds like, I'm just saying, this is what it says in Tiv HaTorah in Parshas Vayera, that it would not say Kabedes Avicha V'Yasimecha, it would say Kabedes Bincha V'Yaspitecha. That's what it says in the Sefer. I'm not saying I hold of it, I don't know how you could even say that, that's what it says. I guess it's tongue in, take it for what it is. How does this apply? When does this apply? This is the Yesod. Get guidance how this applies. In other words, the way I understand it, and I've spoken to people about it, a parent has to have a responsibility to have a point of achva and friendship with their child. It doesn't mean, of course, you're going to tell the child what to do, how to do it, but there has to be a friendship. It has to be based on, if a child feels that he has some type of commonality with you, then when you say go to sleep or do what you have to do, they're much more open to listen than if they feel that you're an absolute dictator. That's the first yesod. Again, if you don't like it, I'm going home, I'm going to America, far away, you don't have to hear. That's the first yesod. Second yesod. The second yesod is like this. It's an alshich, famous alshich, we probably heard it a million times. We talk, we sit at the Shabbos table, don't speak Lashon Hara, don't do this, don't do that. Nobody's paying attention to one word you're saying, nobody cares what you're saying. They're not listening. Says the Alshich, if you want the words that are on your lips, right now they're on your lips. You know where they're going to go when you say them? They're on outside of your head to outside of the person you're talking to's head. Nobody listens to a word that anybody says. But you want to get it into their heart. So if it comes from your heart, then it will go into the heart of the other person. But if it's just from mipiv ulachutz, it will go meiroi shai ulachutz. The only way to ensure that the words that you say will enter the heart of somebody else and enter the heart of your children is you better mean it. In other words, if you're going to sit on the Shabbos table, I got this really nice sheet. It says don't speak Lashon Hara, okay? Don't even bother. Nobody's interested to hear you say something. If you don't mean it, don't bother saying it. It's worth it. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. Says the Alshich, V'hoyu advarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha. If the words that you're saying are on your heart, only then v'shinantam levanecha. Otherwise, don't bother. That's the second yesod. If you have something to say and you want to get it across, you better mean it. If you don't mean it, don't waste your breath. Third yesod. Ignore the second yesod. Nobody's listening to what you say. maybe even if you mean it. There used to be an institution in Klal Yisrael called the Bechor. So I'm a Bechor. So I'm the firstborn. So what do? I have to do the avodah. How do I learn how to do the avodah? Tata, show me how to do the avodah. I said, I don't know how to do the avodah. I'm a middle child. Zayda, show me how to do the avodah. I don't know. I'm the youngest child. So now you have to go to Bechor school. You don't learn anything from school. Nobody ever learned anything from school. Nobody's listening. Because we can go to Bechor school. Okay, Bechor, 1A, put your right foot forward. 1B, put your left foot in front of your right foot. 1C, go to the right of the Mizbeach. So the kid walks out of class, he has his notes. He doesn't know what anybody's talking about. It's not coursing through his veins, it's not part of him. Says the Chizkuni, that's why the Bechor system didn't work. Because the Bechor had to hear and learn from what somebody else said. So Rebbe Shalom says, take two. We're going to have the Levi system. The Levi system works because the Zayda is a Levi, the Tata is a Levi, the kid is a Levi. He doesn't have to go to school. He watches what his parents do. And the way his parents act will naturally become part of him. He doesn't have to listen to a course. He watches a living example of it. You want your kids to be polite. You want them to be erlach. You want them to be honest. Don't tell them about honesty. If you will be honest, they will be honest. If you will be courteous, they'll be courteous. Daven, right now, daven. You take out a phone out during davening, you're basically telling your kid, davening is not important. It's worthless. It's worthless. Daven, you're schmoozing in the back. The Kaf HaChaim says, if you feel you have to schmooze by davening, it's better not to come to shul. It's much better. You get more Gan Eden by sleeping in bed the whole morning. I put my personal advice. If you feel you have to talk by davening, don't come. What are you coming for? It's important to daven. If you're talking in the back, you're telling your kids it's not important to daven. So, the first thing is, nobody's listening to what you're saying. But now we're learning, they're only watching what you're doing. Okay, you ready for this? Ignore what I just said. Nobody cares what you say, and nobody cares what you do. It says Rav Pam. Rav Pam was asked, how do you teach courtesy to children? Midos tovos, politeness. I want my kids to be polite. I don't want them to be rude. So in Australia, everybody's polite. It's like, everybody. In America, it's a problem though. So how do you teach your kids to be polite? So Rav Pam said a very interesting thing. There's a sefer Morat Tzedek, like questions and answers they asked Rav Pam, many of them about Chinuch. How could you be mashpia derech eretz on children? Says Rav Pam, they don't care what you say, and they don't even care what you do. You could be the nicest guy in shul. In shul, please, thank you, third person, fourth person, you could call everybody. Children only learn not what you say to them, not what you do, how you treat that particular child, that's how they will learn. Oh, I get along very well with all my kids. There's one, I have a hard time with, and I don't deal. But in general, 99% of the time, I'm a great guy. They don't care. How do you treat me? Are you courteous to me? Are you soft-spoken to me? Are you polite to me? Rav Pam said that, sometimes Friday, Erev Shabbos, so the mother's very tired. Get off your Game Boy. They have Game Boy. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in Melbourne, right? Get off your video game and help out already. He said his mother, no matter how high the stress level became, she would always say, Yankala, could you please do me a very big favor? Could you take out one little spoon and put it on the Shabbos table? That his mother was always careful that every word should be soft, delicate, refined. That's how you teach children to be Bali Derech Eretz. Not by the way you speak, by the way you speak to them. So the first yesod is there has to be some level of friendship. The second yesod is you better mean what you say. The third yesod is they're watching how you behave, especially how you behave to them. The fourth yesod is what the Rav mentioned, the importance of simcha. The Gemara asks him in Masechta Nedarim, Mibnei ma of the haaretz. Just want to add, perhaps, bring out one thing to focus on. Mitnei ma'av the haaretz. Why was the land destroyed? And the Gemara says, Mitnei shalei baruchu b'Torah b'tchila. They didn't make birchas haTorah. So I never understood. The Gemara says nobody could figure it out. Not the Malachim, not the Nevi'im, not the Chachamim. We had to ask the Ribbono Shel Olam. Could somebody tell me it's not rocket science? We come to the shul, the Rav is standing there. He sees the guy open up the siddur to Matoivu Adon Olam, and then he skips to the Birchas Hashem, and he skips Birchas HaTorah. So what's the big chachma here? The Malachim didn't see the guy skipping Birchas HaTorah? The Rabbi didn't see that they're skipping Birchas HaTorah? Why do we need HaKadosh Baruch Hu? You could have a 10-year-old standing there watching the guy skipping Birchas HaTorah. As I believe the Levush says, that Avada they made Birchas HaTorah. Everybody said Birchas HaTorah. And they shuckled and they swayed and they said they had the Kavanah with the Hashem Havaya and the Hashem Adnos, B'Shiluv with the new Sidurim of the Maslik Midvash. They got everything down. With the notes on the bottom. They had all the Kavanas of Birchas HaTorah. But they missed one thing. Why do you make a bracha on the Torah? I make a bracha on the because I make a bracha on Lulav and Esrog, I make a bracha on Shofar, and I make a bracha on Sukkot, so I make a bracha on the Torah. It's a mitzvah. That's not why you make brachas on Torah. You make a bracha on the Torah because you make a bracha on pizza, and you make a bracha on iced tea, and you make a bracha on jelly beans, so you make a bracha on Torah. It's birchas hanehanin. Mipnei ma'av the haaretz, says the Levush. We know why the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of the big three, Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shfichas Damim. But where are all the big Talmidei Chachamim today? Could somebody tell me? 2 generations ago in Europe, we had hundreds of Gedolim. Where are the Gedolim today? Baruch Hashem, we have Gedolim, but we don't have them in the numbers we used to have. The Shaila of Mimnei Ma'av the Haaretz is, where are the Talmidei Chachamim? And you know what the answer is? People make Birchas HaTorah, but they don't make Birchas HaNehenin. Their Birchas HaTorah is a Birchas HaMitzvah. It's not a Birchas HaNehenin. The father comes home and the kid says, where are you going? Where am I going? I had a long day at work today. But Yidden have been Moiser Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem for 3,000 years, in the times of the Crusades, in the times of the gas chambers and the crematoria. So even though I'm dead tired, I'm also going to go to a shiur. Gavaldik, right? The kid's saying to himself, well, so you're basically telling me that going to a shiur is like going to a gas chamber. So what do I need it for? The father's learning his Moiser Nefesh, but the kid is not interested in being Moiser Nefesh. The kid wants pizza, and he wants iced tea, and he wants jelly beans. So the father should say, I'm going to, because I haven't gotten any hana today yet. I had chicken for supper, I haven't had hana. I'm going to shul because I made a birchas hanenin this morning. The kid doesn't want to hear you being Moiser Nefesh. Why would the kid want to hear that Yidden have been Moiser Nefesh for 3,000 years? That's what he's interested in. You don't tell the kid you're going to be Moiser Nefesh. You said, I made a birchas hanenin tomorrow, this morning. So I have to go to shul, I have to get some real hana. Okay, the 5th principle. This is like completely out of the box. No, it's not a Rishon, it's not an Achron. It's an interesting sefer. It's a biography. It's an art scroll biography. But it's not what you would have thought. A number of my Rabbeim in yeshiva, I learned in yeshiva Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim prides itself that they're the most similar yeshiva to Slabodka. Our Rashi Rav Henoch Leibowitz, his shmuzin were legendary to be b'derech Slabodka, but one of the great Talmidim of Slabodka was also Meir Chadash. He was in the later years of the Alter, one of the closest Talmidim of the Alter. And Rameir Chadash said a very interesting yisoid. This is not dafka with children, for Abayim, for anybody in education. So they came to the Mashgiach, they came to Rameir Chadash, they said, oh, those boys over there, they're waiting on the corner, they're trying to hitch a ride. So Rameir Chadash goes, he walks, he sees them, and he turns around and he walks away. So he said, oh, you saw them, so go apprehend them, go tell them they're caught. So Meir Chadash said like this: I know that I know, but they don't have to know that I know. The moment you catch somebody doing something wrong is the moment you've lost them. Why do they have to know that you know everything? The moment that they think that you know, they never have anything to gain by trying to improve, because in their mind, your opinion of them is tainted. But if they don't know that you know, the next time around, they'll say to themselves, you know what? The Rebbe doesn't know, the father doesn't know, the mother doesn't know. I'm not going to do it this time. Again, you have to know how to apply it and when to apply it. But the rule is, you don't have to catch them doing something. If you know somebody's going to do something wrong, it depends what it is, obviously. But it's not necessary that they need to know that you know everything. You don't have to say everything. You don't have to catch them on everything. It's okay sometimes to overlook, just so that they could save face and have motivation to change in the future. This was a very big principle of Meir Chadash. There was one time a Geneva in the dormitory, and I think in almost every yeshiva, I remember it happened once. So now, we're going to catch the guy. So they go around to each kid. We want to know who did it. Rabbi Meir Chadash says if something happens in yeshiva, don't find out who did it. The moment you find out who did it, you've lost that Talmud forever. That's what he said. But I think it's a yesod. They don't need to know that you know everything. Okay, so we live in the generation of schoolers. I'm not into schoolers. I'm not a schooler fan. But if you can't beat them, join them. So I'm not into schools, but if it's in the Gemara, it's in the Gemara. Rapam would say, don't do schoolers, even if it's in Rishonim. Unless it's in Chazal. Unless it's in a Gemara or a Medrash. But I tell you, a few Gemaras in Shas. There are not so many things that the Gemara says what a person could do to be zoicha to have good children. I tell you, we have a few of them. Number one, this is the sixth principle, the Gemara in Baba Basra. The Gemara says, Rabbi Shua ben Levi Omer, it's number 26, Kol haragel asit stak of a chesed. Anyone who frequently does acts of kindness, acts of charity, zoicha havin leibanim, balei chachma, balei oisher, balei agada. Have children who are wise, who are wealthy, who are darshanim. And the Chavetz Chaim in the Avas Chesed explains, ragel doesn't mean once a year when somebody asks me to do them a favor, I'll say, I'll think about it, I'll get back to you within the month. Ragel means it's part of your personality, it's part of your character, it's part of your mode of behavior. It's something you do all the time. Someone who's ragel and stuck of a chesed doesn't say this about any other mitzvah. Someone who's ragel and stuck of a chesed, it's skula to have good children, talented children, children who are successful in learning. Chavetz Chaim writes in a footnote, he doesn't understand people looking to have children, people looking to be blessed with Zara Chai v'Kayama. They go to all kinds of schoolis and all kinds of different things. Says the Chavetz Chaim, why don't they just follow what it says in the Gemara? Someone who's ragel but stuck of a chesed. Says the Chavetz Chaim, it's baduk umenusa. Not only to have children balei oisher, balei agada, balei chachma. So that's something to think about. To think about a person's life. Am I somebody who's ragel lasid stuck of a chesed? Not only for me, for the welfare of my children, my grandchildren. There's not just for children. Somebody mentioned to me, they're up to grandchildren, even for great-grandchildren, right? Ragel lasid stuck of a chesed, zoichin lahav a banim, balei chachma, balei oisher, balei agada. Next one, number 7. Another school on the Gemara. Amar Rav Huna, haragel b'ner havin leibanim talmidei chachamim. Someone who frequently lights candles. So what is this supposed to mean? Someone who smokes is going to have good children? What does it mean haragel b'ner? So Rashi says, ner Chanukah, ner Shabbos. Everybody lights ner Chanukah. Everybody lights ner Shabbos. Does everybody light Ner Shabbos? At the right time? Well before the Shkia? Yeah, of course everybody does. Does everybody write it properly? I believe the Mishnah Berurah says that the same way by Chanukah Hadlaka Oisa Mitzvah, by Ner Shabbos also Hadlaka Oisa Mitzvah, which means, the Bir Halacha explains, many people, they light the candle, or they light the Ner, they light, oh, it caught? Okay, on to the next. No, that's not how you do it. Hadlaka Oisa Mitzvah means you have to hold it onto the Ner until Roiv of the wick that's supposed to catch fire catches fire. That means, let's say there's an inch of the wick sticking out of the wax or whatever you use of the oil. Usually after you light it, it takes a few seconds till it spreads. Of what will eventually spread, you have to hold it there until most of it has already spread. There are halachas of how to light. Hadlaka, you can't just light it and then it continues on its own. Rabbi Akiva Eiger brings down from the Zohar. Rabbi Akiva Eiger on the Mishnah says, Shloisha dvarim tzarich adam loimer b'soich beis erev Shabbos. Isartem, iravtem, hadliku es haner. You have to ask the wife, did you take off meiser? Did you make an erev? But not hidlaktem, hadliku es haner. Why not hidlaktem? Says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, based on the Zohar, that the job of the woman is to light the candles, but the job of the man is to set them up. So in some houses, the man sets it up and lights it a little bit and blows it out. Many persons say you don't have to do that because it doesn't do anything anyway. Okay, but maybe that's part of it also. There are dikdukim in the Hadlakas Ner Shabbos. The Gemara says, Haragil b'ner havin le'banim talmidei chachamim. Next. Yeah, this guy, he's mamish, he's a Yorei Shamayim. He comes 10 minutes early to Minyan. He doesn't even bring his phone. He doesn't even look at his phone until after he comes home for Shachris. He will not say a word by davening. He learns Daf Yoimi, Mishnah Yoimi, Daf HaShavua, Dirshu, everything, including when the Rav speaks. So, lots of luck to this guy in having good children. He comes home, what the Rav say? I don't want to talk, I don't talk Lashon Hara. Did you like the Shabbos Shuvah Drasha? Let's talk about a different subject. I don't want to say anything bad about the Rav again. So this guy, he's a big Talmid Chacham, yeah. He's a big Lamdan. But the way he talks about Talmid Chachamim, nobody's good enough. Lots of luck to this guy. Lots of luck. Bracha v'hatzlacha. And having a fighting chance and having good children. It says the Gemara, Amarava derachim rabbanon havile benin rabbanim. If you love Talmidei Chachamim, you could be an Amaretz Gomor. You don't learn the Daf Yomi, you don't learn the Mishnah Yomi. You don't even come to davening. How is the drasha? You don't understand, we're so fortunate to have such a Rav. The kid comes home and says, my Rebbe told me, your Rebbe? Your Rebbe. Your Rebbe doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, lots of luck to this guy. Your Rebbe, it's unbelievable. You want to have good children? Harachim Rabbanon, having le benin Rabbanon. If you love Talmidei Chachamim, not if you learn. We don't care if you learn or not right now. We want to know, what is your attitude toward Talmidei Chachamim? Do you love them or you denigrate them? If your family understands that you're machshiv Talmidei Chachamim, more than that, you love Talmidei Chachamim. You love your kids' Rabbeim. You love your kids' Menalim. You love the Rabbanim where you daven. Yeah, I love my Rabb, but none of the other Rabbanim in town are any good. No, you love all the Rabbanim in the city. When your kids hear how much you love Talmidei Chachamim, the Gemara says, Derachim Rabbanim havele benin Rabbanim. That's the Gemara. Next. Number 9. Number 9 is obvious. Rav Pam once got up and he electrified a crowd. He said as follows: the key ingredient in having good children is shalom bayis. He quoted the Stipler, good children is 50% one thing and 50% shalom bayis. obviously, if the parents are not getting along, also, the kids are going to be quite confused. They say by the Ben Sairo Moira that a kid is only a Ben Sairo Moira if the parents have the same voice. Which, what is that supposed to mean? The parents have the same voice. No two people in the world have the same voice. If the father and the mother have the exact same voice, there's something wrong over here. That's weird. So it means that you can only hold a kid accountable for being a Ben Saira Moira if the parents agree and have the same attitude towards things. If the parents don't agree on something, then of course the kid's going to be a Ben Saira Moira. You can't punish the kid. The parents made the kid a Ben Saira Moira. So I was very surprised by this statement that the Stipler said 50% of a kid is Shalom Bayis. So I sent a letter to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Did your father say that children is 50% Shalom Bayis? And Reb Chaim said, no. I said, I never heard it. Doesn't mean it's not true. Reb Pam said it over. It's Pashat. Whether the Stipler said it, he didn't say it. Reb Pam said it. You don't need a raya. It's Pashat. Okay, we're going to say the 10th and final ingredient, and this is the most important of all. There's the Yalkut Shemaini. The Yalkut Shemaini says there was once a Kohen. And the Kohen was a Yarei Shamayim, and he had 10 children, 6 boys and 4 daughters. And every day he would roll in the dust and cry and wail and beseech and be mispalel or mischanein that his children grow up to be God-fearing Jews. Says the Medrash, Ezra came, he galvanized Klal Yisrael, they went back to Eretz Yisrael, and this Kohen did not leave this world until he saw Banim uvnei Banim Kohanim Gedolim for many generations, and only then he left this world. So the Mefarshim ask, okay, a very nice story, what are you supposed to learn from the story? And what we learn from the story is that the key ingredient to good children is tefillah, tefillah, tefillah. The Brisker Rav, I don't know if this is an authentic brisk story. You could ask the Rav is the maven, but at least they say it over. That in the 50s and the 60s, many Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, they had kids that went off. They say ein bias asher ein shames, communism, socialism, nationalism. And the Brisker Rav was renowned. He would sit around the table with all of his boys, each one Talmidei Chachamim in their own right. And he was the envy of all the Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. And they would ask him, Brisker Rav, how do you do it? How are you zoicha that all your children are such high caliber Talmidei Chachamim? What's your method? What's your technique? And the Brisker Rav would say there are no methods, there are no techniques, there are no skills, there are no ways, there are no classes, there are no books. There's only one way to do it. Demais, Tehillim, there's only one way. Tears. Says the Brisker Rav, never in my entire life did I daven one dry-eyed Shmoina Esrei. Not even once. Tanaka. I saw Rav Scheinberg daven Shmoina Esrei many, many times. Every single time he davened Shmoina Esrei was Yoreh Demais. Every single time. Throughout the Shmoina Esrei. The Brisker Rav said, I never davened a dry-eyed Shmoina Esrei. Every Shmoina Esrei ever davened was Demais that my children should be Yirei Shamayim. Brisker Rav said some parents, they rock their kids to sleep with the most absurd nursery rhymes about kids rolling off the hill, cracking their heads open, with their blood flowing out, and they're putting this poor little kid to sleep, and the kid has to hear about some guy named Jack who has his decapitated rolling down the hill. And they wonder why the kids have nightmares and come into the bed in the middle of the night. Because the last thing they heard was a guy who needed to have his head stitched back onto his body. Says the Brisker Rav, I don't say nursery rhymes to my kids. I cry Tehillim when I put my kids to sleep. The Shlach Kadosh writes, if you look on your sheet, number 39. V'tamid tiyat tefillah shagura b'fi avaim. The tefillah for one's children should be shagur in the mouth of a father and mother. Le'espalal al zaram sheyiru loim de Torah v'tzadikim u'balei midos toivos By the way, if you look in the Mishnah Berurah, he doesn't quote the Shla, but he has to be quoting the Shla. He says the exact words of the Shla in Siman Mem Zayin. Tamid tia tfilas ha'av ha'em shkura befihem. Sheyu loim de Torah tzadikim u'balei midos toivos. There's no question the Mishnah Berurah took it from the Shla. And the Mishnah Berurah and the Shla both say there are specific intervals of the davening that are masugol to daven for children. They are in Birchas HaTorah, when you say V'niya anachnu v'tzetzoenu. When in Avarabba, when you say Avinu av harachamon, the same blibenu bina lahavinu lahaskil. And finally in Uvalat Tzion, when you say Laman le'niga l'rik v'le'nei le'bahala. You can daven any time. But those are the 3 times during the tefillah that are designated by the poskim, by the chazal, to daven for children. When I was learning in Eretz Yisrael, I was close to meet one of the oldest Talmidim of the Chafetz Chaim, one of the last Talmidim of the Chafetz Chaim. I don't know if there's still Talmidim of the Chafetz Chaim around, maybe a few, but he was one of the well-known Talmidim of Rabbi Mordechai Zuckerman. And he was once interviewed. And he was interviewed for the 5-volume biography of the Chafetz Chaim. And they asked him the following question. Chafetz Chaim lived in a dar that there were Gedolei Olam. Dozens and dozens of them. But somehow the Chafetz Chaim was Oila al Kulanam. What was it? What was the secret ingredient of the Chafetz Chaim? And Reb Zuckerman says that in his opinion, the secret ingredient of the Chafetz Chaim were the tears of his mother. That the Chafetz Chaim, when he was presented with the tear-drenched Tehillim of his mother, he would say, do you know how many tears my mother shed that I should be an Erlich Hayid? And I'm going to tell you my all-time favorite story. And I'll end with this. So they came to the Stipler. They said, Stipler, give us a bracha for good children. What are the tachbulos? What are the eitzos? What can we do to have good children? The Stipler said there are no eitzos, there are no tachbulos, there's nothing you could do. All you could do is daven with tears. Says the Stipler, what do you think I do for my little Yingala? A day doesn't go by that I'm not mispalel that my Yingala Chayimol should grow up to be a Yarei Shamayim. Chayimol was already 52 years old, one of the Gedolei Hadar. So you want to know when it stops? It never stops. It's never too early. Banim, Bnei Banim, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, before they're born, after they're adults, they can be married with grandchildren of their own. It's the responsibility of a parent. We'll just conclude. Reb Volba writes, we know that if somebody kills b'shoigeg, so they have to go to the Ari Miklat. And when do they get to go out? When the Kohen Gadol dies. What does the poor Kohen Gadol have to do with the guy who killed b'shoigeg? So Chazal say, the Gemara says in Makos, that the Kohen Gadol should have davened that under his watch nobody killed b'shoigeg. So says Reb Volba, why does the Kohen Gadol have to daven that nobody killed b'shoigeg? It says somewhere, it's where in the Torah does it say that the job of a Kohen Gadol is that he needs to be mispalel that nobody kills b'shoigeg. Says Reb Volba, it must be that if you're in a position of achrayus, you have an obligation to daven for those who you are responsible for. Is there anyone who you're more responsible for than your own children? What then is the onus upon us? What then is our chiyuv to mispalel for our children? So these are a few ideas, a few suggestions, and in the schus of coming together tonight to try to learn a little bit about what we could do to educate our children in the best possible way. May the Rebbe Shem give us all siyata d'shmaya to see the nachas that we're all hoping for. Banim uvnei banim oiskim b'Torah v'mitzvos ad bias goyal tzaddik. Thank you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.